guys, it's Julia. Welcome back to my channel. So today's video is one I am incredibly excited for. It's been months in the works, but the inspiration for this video came when I was looking at a side-by-side of two looks I've done a couple years apart.
Oh my god, what is that? Oh my god! What is that?
I realized not only how much my makeup skills have improved, but also how much I've learned during my time of just watching beauty YouTube videos. Undoubtedly, one of my favorite things about the beauty community is its capacity to be able to teach people how to do makeup, and it taught me from scratch. But it got me thinking about beauty guru makeup tips, especially because I've seen a lot of hacks rolling around TikTok as well. And I wanted to make a video not only talking about some of the best techniques I've learned from YouTube that have really changed the way that I do my face, because my overall technique and the way that I do my face now has drastically changed from how I used to do my face, but also doing a little comprehensive list of some of the worst techniques as well that really did not work for me, and I'll explain why. So I'm super excited for this video, especially because part of it is sponsored by NYX Professional Makeup and a product that I've been buying for years, which is the Epic Ink Liner. So we're going to be talking about this in a second, but I hope you guys enjoy this video. And I think one or two of the best techniques in here I actually learned from the comment sections on one of my videos from you guys, so I have you to thank for some of these. But let's get learning. I hope you guys enjoy this. Full details of this makeup look should already be on Instagram. Today's do fairy of the day is Miss Lauren Ashley. Thank you so much for having your notification bell on. And I'm so excited, so let's get into it. So the number one best tip that I would probably give anybody who's just starting to build a makeup collection is knowing which products to splurge on versus which products to save on. And I've talked about this in the past, but there are certain items of makeup where I really feel it's really not worth it getting a high-end version. For me, eyeliner, mascara, usually false lashes, brows are products that I really prefer getting from the drugstore because not only do I feel that they are amazing quality in that price range, but also I don't really see that much of a difference with higher-end products, whereas I personally prefer to splurge on foundation and skincare, and usually eyeshadow. So that is where the NYX Cosmetics Epic Ink Liner comes in. This I've been buying for a couple years now. I'm wearing the black ink liner today. It's by far my favorite liquid liner anywhere, drugstore or high-end. I also recently got the brown one, and you guys know I've been really loving brown liner recently. I think it's a trend that's just coming back in general, so the brown one is really amazing, but the black is just a classic. So with products like this, going for dupes is awesome. The Epic Ink Liner is waterproof and it has a really nice fine tip. So especially for me, because I like to get a really nice taper for my wing, this is just the easiest liner to draw things with. I've bounced around to so many different liners over the past couple years, but I always end up coming back to this one just because this is one of the only ones that doesn't crack throughout the day. I personally find liquid liners and pan liners like this a lot easier to do winged liner with than using a gel clay liner. That's just me. But if you really like a nice, I guess fluid formula is how I describe this. So this is the eyeliner that I recommend most to people, not only on my channel but in real life to my friends. And honestly, I just find it to be very comparable, if not better, than luxury price liners that are a lot more expensive. One of the easiest pens to work with, so I definitely recommend this one for anybody who's just starting out to do wing liner. I think this is a really good one to learn with. And just in general, learning, especially early on when I was kind of building a collection, what products were the best to splurge on versus what products are available in really amazing comparable formulas at the drugstore. I'd rather pay $9 for a really good eyeliner and then take that extra $15 I saved and put it towards a really cool palette. But you've heard this all before. I've talked about the Epic Ink I don't know how many times on my channel, and I'm so thrilled to be sharing it and partnering with NYX Cosmetics today. So this is a huge moment for me. I was very excited about this video, and that is my first tip: splurge on some things and save on some things. Also, most of these tips I've gotten so long ago that I've definitely forgotten who gave them to me, but if I remember which specific YouTuber I got the tip from, I'll be sure to cite it. But no thoughts, head empty. This second tip is one of my favorites as well, but once it was explained to me, it really made sense. So I got this tip from Wayne Goss, and it's to avoid using pressed powder on your under eyes. So this is a product I used to use very often for setting my under eyes. It's the Essence Brighten Up Banana Powder. Generally, where I would want brightening would be my under eyes, of course, so I would use this and this alone as my sole setting powder for my under eyes. But I was watching a Wayne Goss tips and techniques video, and he explained how he avoids using pressed powder on the under eyes because of the texture that it creates. And I had been setting my eyes with this powder for a long time, and halfway through the day I would see my concealer in natural lighting and be like, oh, that is crusty. Basically, pressed powder, as the name would imply, is pressed. It's a really densely packed formula. To kind of illustrate that, this pressed powder is 0.31 ounces and the Glossier powder is 0.25 ounces. So almost, not really, almost equivalent amounts of product in here, but the Essence one actually has more powder by the weight because it's basically loose powder but pressed and compressed down into a smaller volume. So just by the nature of that, it is a little bit of a heavier product, whereas a looser powder is going to be more airy. So when you set your under eyes, it's depositing a little bit more of a dense layer of product, and thus it's going to look a little bit more heavy throughout the day. When he explained it like that, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. But I wasn't fully convinced, so I stopped using this for a bit and I started using loose powders on my under eyes. Not baking necessarily, because that just gives you an excess amount of powder, but using a nice small amount of under eye powder and just like lightly setting as much as I needed to get it to be nice and dry, but not like flour underneath my eyes. So I now use the Fenty Beauty lavender setting powder, and it's a little bit of like a purple tinge, so it gives me that brightening that I want, but it doesn't have that really heavy effect. Of course, some people can get away with setting their under eyes with pressed powder and it looks really amazing, but if you do find that you are having a little bit of a heavier look on your under eyes and you're not sure, could be the powder that you're using or the application techniques. So give it a shot. I switched to loose powder and it's been amazing. I've talked about this recently because it's been something that I've been implementing, I want to say like halfway through quarantine, so not for that long. This is a technique that most pro makeup artists actually do, I've heard. I personally got it from Snitchery's channel, but basically spot foundationing. Life-changing. Basically what that entails is instead of using foundation all over your face as like a full coverage layer, just using foundation where you need it. So of course that's going to mean that you have to get something that's going to match your natural skin tone. So you can't really use a foundation that's like drastically different to change your skin tone. But once you lock down a really good color match, I find that just applying enough foundation in the areas that I need it to a point where it's going to cover up what I want it to cover but still look like skin gives me the most skin-like effect and actually doesn't look like foundation. So for me that's doing just a tiny bit of foundation on my chin, usually my forehead because I do have some breakouts up here, on my nose, and then on just the apples of my cheeks but not out here. It looks a lot more like skin in natural lighting than an all over base of foundation would. And then especially using a beauty sponge I feel like gives you a lot more of a natural effect than using a brush. And then wherever you need a little bit of extra coverage, just spot concealing and in general using as minimal product as possible so it is mostly your skin showing through. So that's been one of my favorite things. Not only has it changed the way that my like base looks in general, but also I've saved a lot of product doing it. I have two like fairly old videos on my channel that are actually still videos I'm very proud of. Like most of my old videos I cannot watch anymore because I'm like, ugh, yuck. But I did 2 videos in the past talking about my favorite eyeshadow tips and techniques that have changed the way I do eyeshadow, and probably the biggest technique that I learned is the fairy wand. Holding eyeshadow brushes at their very end rather than gripping them up here truly changes the way that the blend looks. With this grip you can get kind of heavy-handed and accidentally deposit too much color in one place to a point where it's harder to blend out. Whereas with this you still have control, but it's just so much easier to get that nice diffusion. So hold your brushes like a fairy wand and not like a pen. So I'm sure you've heard of the powders and cream rule, which is basically you can't layer cream products on top of powder products on your cheeks, so don't layer like a liquid highlighter on top of a fully powdered face. And that's mostly true, but also sometimes not. In my experience, it's more about the unique formula and texture of the products and the application techniques. So the Glossier Nightshine highlighter is a liquid highlighter obviously, but I still don't mind using it if I've like accidentally powdered my cheek. I don't really powder my face anymore, but still. I feel comfortable using this one on top of powder products, for example like a powder blush. As long as you're being careful and trying to not disrupt the layers of products, I really think that you can get away with applying a liquid product on top of a powder. So for the sake of this video, I powdered my face today. But just dabbing a little bit of this highlighter on and then taking care to lightly dab it on without smudging it or kind of smearing around the layers of product I have underneath it, you're able to still get that nice application of the liquid product, and it sits really well on top of the other products without disrupting the layers underneath. It's like half intuition and half common sense. Like you don't want to use a very like oil-based liquid highlighter. I don't know a ton of formulas like that anyways, but you wouldn't want to use something like super emollient and oil based on top of like a very full coverage foundation. Oil removes makeup, so it's going to break up the foundation layer. With something a little bit thicker like this, I think it can work really well. Cleansing for 60 seconds. Life-changing. I have no idea who gave me this tip. I'm pretty sure it was Beauty Within. For me, cleansing used to be a step where I would just go to the bathroom, put cleanser in my hands, just go and just like try and get it done as fast as possible. Not only is it really hard to get all your makeup off in 15 seconds, but you would have to use like a fairly harsh cleanser. So for me, I like to set a benchmark of around 60 seconds and I use a gentler cleanser. Fresh Soy Face Cleanser is my personal favorite, but putting not too much product in my hands, that was another thing. I was using a lot of cleanser. I was using a lot more cleanser than I needed to because I wasn't keeping it on my face for a long time. But using a nice decent amount of cleanser, really like massaging it and working it into your skin. The way that an esthetician would when they're giving a facial, they spend a lot of time just kind of massaging cleanser around in your face because not only is it luxurious, but it also helps you break up the stuff on your face in a gentle way. And then once I've had the cleanser on for like 60 seconds and really made sure I've worked it in, then you wash it down and you see all your makeup come off. Number 7, another one of my favorite tips is Robert Welch's concealer techniques. This is another one I've talked about on my channel before, but again has changed the way that I do my base. So I used to do my concealer, and I think most people who've like been around beauty YouTube since like 2016 did their concealer like this at some point, but taking whatever concealer I was using and doing like a full-on triangle of product. I would take my concealer, start here, apply here, and then drag it down almost to like my mole here on my cheek, and then I would blend that out, and it was a lot of product. And yes, it made my under eye very bright because it was a lot more product than I needed, but again, especially combined with the pressed powder on my under eyes, it looked pretty heavy. So a way that I find is a lot more effective and also you waste a lot less product is just taking whatever concealer you're using, first starting on the very inner tear duct. This is the part that anatomically is most sunken in the eyes. You want to apply brightness here to bring that forward on your face. And then applying a little bit of concealer right here, just on the edge of the orbital bone, tapping those in, and then using whatever is excess on the sponge if you need to, and just kind of dabbing that right in the middle if you do have darkness there. Of course, you want to customize that to your face shape and your anatomy. That might not be like the technique for everybody, but in general, using less concealer or just like not doing the triangle is a great option. This is a tip that for a while I was so resistant to because I was like, I don't want to use cheek products on my eyes. That just, I don't know, I was stubborn. One of my favorite things when I'm doing a neutral eye look is whatever bronzer I use on my cheeks that day, I like to just take a little bit of it. I just like to dust it through my crease. So this is the Fenty Beauty Shady Biz bronzer. Bronzer in the crease is just so pretty. I feel like it just brings a little bit of unity to the look. The same way that like kind of coordinating your lipstick and your blush together in a sense brings a little bit of unity to the look. You can't really put your finger on it. Like you can't tell like, oh, she put bronzer in her crease, but it meshes really well. Gotta tell you, I really did not live until I put soap in my brows for the first time. You really don't need anything fancy. You just need a spoolie like this and soap. Boom. Dial. $1. And I swear to you, the effect of that soap brow is hold your brows in place the same way that like the $20 ABH brow gel does. I know some people are kind of scared off by the soap brow trend because of like the Instagram feather brows where they're like really fluffy, but you don't have to do that. It's basically just the way that you would use a clear brow gel, except you're just wetting your brush a little bit, scraping it through the soap, brushing that through. As long as you're using like a fairly thin amount, it doesn't dry like white and flaky or anything, and it holds your brows in place all day long. My final tip, I don't do this all the time, but it's really useful if I have a pair of false lashes that I'm trying to break in still, or that I just feel aren't working super well with my eye shape, is segmented lash application. So instead of just applying your strip lashes all in one strip, especially if you find like wearing strip lashes very uncomfortable, cutting your false lashes into little segments and then applying them segment by segment not only allows you to really customize the length of your strip lash in general, but also can be a lot more comfortable because your eyes have a little bit more flexibility. So when you blink throughout the day, you can't really feel the lashes on you as much. So it's not something I do very often, but if I have a pair of lashes that, for example, maybe they're like really big false lashes and they're really heavy, I feel like it's a lot more comfortable if I do that, and also you're a lot less likely to have them popping up on the inner corner, so that's a really good hack. Alright, now finishing off with some of the worst, in my opinion, techniques. Some of these just straight up don't work on like an aesthetic / chemical level, but some of these just didn't work for me, so take all of these with a grain of salt. But the first one, setting your cream highlighter with a powder highlighter.
That's so upsetting.
This I feel like was pretty popular a couple years ago when people weren't really using cream highlighters as much. They existed of course, but mostly pro makeup artists were using them. Cream highlighter generally is not something that needs to be set, and there is such a thing as too much highlighter. Setting a cream highlighter with a powder highlighter, not only does it ruin that beautiful nice skin-like texture that cream highlighter is used for, also because you have that nice fairly glowy layer of cream highlighter underneath, then you're layering on top of powder highlighter, it can kind of create that weird like foiled, almost like silvery gray stripe on your cheekbone, which I don't think is cute. The only thing you really need to set your cream highlighter in place is like maybe some setting spray, but don't use powder on top of it. Number 2, I really object to the kind of rule that you can't mix warm toned eyeshadows or warm toned products with cool tones for skin undertone, or vice versa. You can't wear cool tones if you have a warm undertone for your skin. BS. I think while it does maybe take a little bit finessing to really find what works for you, and I definitely do think that cool undertones for skin are harder to match with things than warm undertones for skin, but I definitely do not think that it's true that you have to wear only cool toned eyeshadow if you have cool undertones in your skin. Warm tonality is a spectrum, so maybe you might want to avoid things that are like super yellow toned on your eyes if you have cool undertones in your skin. So maybe avoiding things that are on like this side of the warm tone scale, but maybe like a a little bit here or here. Number 3, I thought we had eradicated this from YouTube, but I do see it being done on like Instagram. But using lipstick as a color corrector on your under eyes. In theory, it's there. Robert Welsh is much more educated on like why color correction is mostly done wrong. So definitely watch him if you want like a better explanation. But basically, I don't recommend putting lipstick on your under eyes. It will clog your pores in some way, shape, or form. Some people have really resilient skin and can get away with it, but milia can be A, pretty itchy and also very hard to get rid of. Number 4 in general is one size fits all nose contouring. I just don't think that every single nose type is going to A, even be able to benefit from nose contouring, or B, like the same techniques for nose contouring. I have a pretty big nose. I don't like my nose. We've been over this. But my nose is one that doesn't really look different when I contour it. It just looks like I put brown stuff on my nose. Whereas some people have nose shapes where naturally if they apply just a little bit of extra shadow, it does look different when they contour. The reason I'm really mentioning this is because I see a lot of people like not being able to get the effect that a lot of other people get from nose contouring and then being like, oh, I'm doing it wrong. When in reality, it's really just not a very one-size-fits-all technique, and I don't like that people pretend that it is. So don't feel bad if you really can't like get nose contouring to look the way you want it to. For some people, we just built different. While we were talking about contouring, lip contouring. This is something that I believe was popularized by Huda Beauty, but basically it's taking a bunch of different colors of lip liner and like drawing out full structures under your lips that supposedly when you apply lipstick on top of it will give you like a contoured effect. The reason this for the most part doesn't work is because most lip products, especially liquid lipsticks, are very, very full coverage. So whatever like understructures and contouring that you've drawn onto your lips underneath it, they're not really going to show up if you go on top with a very, very full coverage liquid lipstick. Instead, I would just recommend getting a lip liner that's maybe not like aggressively darker, but like 1 or 2 shades darker than the lipstick you're going to use. Lining your lips with that, blending it out. I feel like a lot of people don't really blend out their lip liner that much. I just like to kind of take my middle finger and just kind of lightly blur out the lip liner so it looks a little bit more natural, and then go in with your lipstick, and I think that looks really beautiful. Number 6 is another one I did very often, but using a very, very, very light concealer on your under eyes as a highlighting shade. So the lightest concealer I have in my collection is the KKW Beauty concealer in the shade 1. I'm probably a shade like 3 in KKW's concealers, so this is significantly lighter than I would ever need. And while using a concealer shade maybe 1 or 2 shades lighter than what your foundation would be can give you a nice highlighted effect. You don't want something that's like white to give you that highlighted effect. It's just going to look like white concealer. And then last but not least, liquid highlighter as a glowy primer underneath the full coverage foundation. Not only does liquid highlighter just kind of emphasize every bit of texture you have on your face when you're using it all over your face as a primer, but also if you're going on top of the full coverage foundation, that was kind of a pointless step. So that was a technique that I think, again, kind of like the lipstick as a color corrector, very popular on like makeup Instagram, maybe not a thing that people do in their actual routines. So I don't know. And that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video talking about some of the best and worst makeup tips and techniques from all my years on beauty YouTube. Thank you so much again to NYX Cosmetics and the Epic Ink Liner for sponsoring today's video. I'm pretty sure that I got segmented lash application from a comment section from one of my older videos, so thank you so much for that. Anyways, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe down below. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you made it to the very end of this video, you get the bonus meme. By the way, you're beautiful. I love what you did with your hair today. Bye.
Was worse than heartbreak. Ever cheated on my husband still. And I'm so happy it's summer. You think Bella worthy of a sad birthday user is so shocked. Girls will literally perform witchcraft to avoid texting. What is that? What do you think it is? Girls when they ask you to open a drawer for them versus girls when you try to pull the blanket to yours. What people hear someone break into their house and be like, who goes there? 15 minutes at a supermarket, 2 days at my Oh my god, the baby is so gorgeous in the ultrasound.